For years, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson stood at the summit of Hollywood, framed as an unstoppable force who could turn any project into a global event. Studios relied on his presence like a safety net. Executives built entire marketing campaigns around his smile alone. Audiences believed the name guaranteed spectacle, confidence, and charm. But beneath the polished exterior, a different reality was forming, quietly, slowly, relentlessly. A pattern of miscalculations, mismatched expectations, and unchecked ambition was beginning to fracture the mythology surrounding him. Every blockbuster that underperformed left a hairline crack. Every behind-the-scenes conflict widened it. Every public promise that went unfulfilled turned the cracks into fissures. The shift did not happen in one explosive moment. It arrived like a slow leak in a sealed room, silent, invisible, deadly. One failure did not dismantle his empire. Instead, a chain of decisions began to stack against him, creating pressure that even the strongest persona could not outrun. The industry that once celebrated him began to whisper. Analysts questioned his box office power. Fans noticed the repetition in his roles. Directors quietly complained about scheduling demands, bloated budgets, and creative disagreements. Each incident seemed isolated, almost insignificant. But together, they formed a narrative Hollywood could no longer ignore. This is the story of how one of the most beloved and dominant figures in entertainment found himself facing the one enemy he never prepared for: reality. The collapse did not begin on a movie set or in a boardroom. It began with the illusion that nothing could ever go wrong. And when that illusion finally shattered, it revealed a truth far more compelling than any character he ever played. A truth that would send shockwaves through the industry and force the world to ask a question that once seemed unthinkable. How does a man built on invincibility survive the moment he becomes vulnerable? The first signs of trouble emerged long before anyone acknowledged them. At the height of his success, The Rock shifted from actor to brand, from performer to enterprise. Every decision became part of a broader strategy, expanding influence, multiplying revenue streams, and constructing an image of unstoppable forward motion. But the transformation carried a hidden cost. The more the brand grew, the more the man behind it disappeared. Authenticity slowly eroded under layers of calculated optimism and relentless self-promotion. Audiences who once felt connected to him began to sense the distance, even if they could not articulate why. In Hollywood's internal circles, concerns started to circulate. Some projects inflated in budget due to reshoots and creative adjustments. Marketing teams struggled to defend lackluster performance by emphasizing his global popularity, even when numbers failed to support the narrative. Executives noticed a pattern. The promise of guaranteed success no longer matched the box office reality. Meanwhile, The Rock doubled down on maintaining an image of invincibility, projecting confidence across social media, interviews, and public appearances. Yet, behind the scenes, tension grew as expectations rose faster than results. The shift became most visible when one of his highly anticipated films underperformed dramatically. The impact rippled through the industry. Analysts who once declared him a bulletproof box office weapon began to revise their assessments. News outlets framed the film's failure not as an isolated misstep, but as evidence of overreach. The brand that once represented dominance suddenly appeared vulnerable. As the narrative changed, Hollywood insiders reevaluated their strategies, questioning whether aligning with him remained the safe investment it once was. But the true unraveling was not happening in headlines. It was happening in the quiet realization that the structure supporting his career, the public trust, the studio confidence, the illusion of infallibility, was no longer holding. Momentum, once his greatest ally, now worked against him. Instead of lifting him higher, it carried him toward consequences no amount of charisma could deflect. And as the pressure mounted, the world watched the first cracks widen into fractures. By 2022, Dwayne Johnson was on a mission to cement himself as Hollywood's ultimate action and superhero star. Black Adam was meant to be the apex of his career, a project where he could dominate the screen, command the narrative, and assert himself as the centerpiece of an entire cinematic universe. Johnson had made no secret of his intentions, to take control of the DC franchise and mold it in his image, just as he had reshaped Fast and Furious with his larger-than-life charisma. The expectations were astronomical. Fans, executives, and investors all anticipated a blockbuster that would redefine the genre. The reality, however, would be a shock. When Black Adam hit theaters, the reception was a disaster. Critics and fans alike pointed out a troubling pattern. Johnson's movies had become predictable, formulaic, and overly dependent on his persona. The character he portrayed, once charismatic and multidimensional, felt recycled, lacking the depth audiences craved. Box office numbers plummeted, and what was supposed to be a career-defining triumph instead became a cautionary tale. The damage extended beyond financial loss. The narrative that Johnson could carry a franchise single-handedly was shattered. Internally, studio executives began to whisper that his ego had taken over the creative process, interfering with the vision and ultimately undermining the project. The fallout was swift. Johnson attempted to control the narrative, asserting that the movie's success should be measured differently, merely by the fan reactions, streaming numbers, and merchandising potential. But the excuses fell flat. Hollywood had learned that charisma alone could not replace substance, and audiences had begun to see through the carefully crafted persona. Black Adam became a symbol of overreach, the moment where Johnson's relentless drive collided with reality. It was a turning point, signaling that even the most dominant star could be vulnerable to failure, and that no amount of optimism or charm could rewrite a collapsing story. Once considered untouchable, Johnson began to encounter resistance from the very industry that had elevated him. Directors and co-stars, long accommodating of his larger-than-life presence, started to voice frustration. Reports surfaced of on-set tensions, delays, and creative disagreements. Scheduling conflicts were no longer minor inconveniences. They became recurring problems, delaying production and inflating budgets. One film alone saw an additional $50 million added due to repeated late arrivals, extended shoots, and excessive demands for script changes to favor Johnson's character. Fans, too, began to react. Social media, once a platform for adoration, now amplified criticism. Observers noticed a pattern: the same character arc, the same attitude, the same formula applied to every role. Johnson's efforts to appeal to everyone had diluted his uniqueness, transforming him into a brand rather than a performer. The disconnect between image and reality widened, and what had once been perceived as confidence now appeared as arrogance. Public perception shifted from awe to skepticism, with casual moviegoers questioning if the once unifying superstar had finally outgrown his audience. The culmination of backlash occurred during WWE appearances. Johnson, who had maintained a dual presence in wrestling, returned in 2024 to a storyline that alienated fans. His interference in a feud between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns sparked a wave of criticism so intense that the WWE had to rewrite the storyline entirely. While Johnson attempted to frame the controversy as a calculated plan to boost Rhodes' popularity, the public saw through the spin. The aura of invincibility that had defined him for decades was now fractured, revealing cracks beneath the carefully maintained exterior. As the gap between persona and reality widened, Johnson's personal brand became increasingly unsustainable. Behind the camera, he was often reported to be late, distracted, and inflexible. Plastic bottles, late arrivals by hours, and a penchant for controlling scenes created an environment where crew members were forced to accommodate erratic behavior. These incidents, once hidden behind studio secrecy, began to leak into public awareness. The Rock's carefully constructed persona, optimistic, motivating, ever-present, was now at odds with the emerging narrative. Audiences, always attentive to authenticity, began to perceive that his public image did not match private behavior. Interviews and appearances, designed to inspire and entertain, were increasingly criticized as scripted, evasive, or insincere. A Joe Rogan interview in 2023 became a case study in this dynamic. Johnson, despite his commanding presence, avoided answering questions directly, reflecting back inquiries rather than providing clarity. This pattern reinforced the perception that the brand was more important than the man himself, that every statement was calculated for approval and profit, not truth. Even as studios attempted to manage damage control, the public's perception was hardening. Johnson's physical transformation, long a symbol of dedication and power, became subject to speculation about performance enhancers. Every exaggerated anecdote about his diet, training, or daily routines fueled suspicion. In attempting to maintain an image of unrelenting vitality, he had inadvertently invited scrutiny, creating another layer of tension between expectation and reality. The Rock's mythos, once untouchable, now teetered under its own weight. By 2025, Dwayne Johnson faced a critical crossroads. The combination of public scrutiny, industry criticism, and personal overreach created a perfect storm. Movies failed to meet expectations, social media amplified every misstep, and even his return to wrestling highlighted a lack of alignment with audience desires. The Om Kalmranam, once celebrated chameleon, able to adapt to any role or persona, now struggled under the weight of the expectations he had created. Amid this turmoil, there are signs of potential redemption. Upcoming projects, including The Smashing Machine, indicate a shift away from formulaic action roles toward more challenging, introspective performances. Johnson appears to be experimenting with vulnerability, complexity, and depth, stepping away from the persona that had carried him to the top. Audiences, always eager for a comeback, remain cautiously optimistic. Hollywood thrives on reinvention, and the story of The Rock is far from over. The final lesson, however, is unmistakable. No star is immune to the consequences of overextension. The pursuit of universal appeal can dilute authenticity. The obsession with control can alienate allies. And even the most celebrated figure can face collapse when the gap between public persona and reality becomes impossible to maintain. Dwayne Johnson's journey from unstoppable icon to cautionary tale stands as a stark reminder of the precarious balance between fame, power, and self-awareness. The question remains, will The Rock evolve, reclaim his dominance, or will he be remembered primarily as a cautionary tale in the annals of Hollywood history? Only time will tell.